morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on. And welcome back to Across the Pitch. After a brief hiatus, we were very, very excited to get back to talking some Accrington Stanley football. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Tony Robinson and Darren Woodhead. Yes, we are all three here in the, well, I wouldn't say in the house because we're in three different countries, but we certainly have a lot to cover since the last time we recorded. Of course, Tony has been over to Accrington and is now back in Canada, so we're going to talk about his trip. We're going to talk about everything that's going on with the club, which is quite a bit, both on and off the pitch. But before we do that, first and foremost, how are you gentlemen doing today?
Yeah, all good. Phil, nice to speak to you guys again. It's been a while. I think probably the end of season roundup, probably the last time we all got together, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it has been about that long, and it's great to hear from you, Darren, and have you on the show with us. It really, I think it adds an extra element when we get all three of us here and can kind of bounce ideas off of one another. And Tony, have you gotten settled back in Canada?
Yes, I am settled in, Phil. Thanks, and nice to talk to Darren again. I haven't seen him for, well, I spoke to him about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We had a cup of tea before I left, but yeah, since we last recorded, I've crossed the Atlantic twice. And lots of stuff going on, and for lots of reasons we weren't able to sort of get together. But I'm excited that we're able to pull this off today. And it's like, what's happened since our last podcast? Not much, right?
Well, what hasn't happened since our last podcast is, I think, more like it. But I'm really, I'm excited that we get a chance to talk. There's definitely some things I'm excited to talk about. There's definitely some things that I'm not so excited to talk about. But Tony, let's start off with a summary of your visit over to Accrington.
Well, I'll just give the brief version. It was a great trip, and enjoyed it thoroughly. Meeting up with family and friends, and trips to the Wamstead and was it's always a thrill to go back and sit in the seat and watch a live football match, and spent some time with Darren and his lovely wife. So we the football was could have been better at times, but did get some time to spend some time with Luke Pearson and with John Coleman and Jimmy Bell, and talked to a few of the players. Went to a practice session, so we've got a few players that we've got that they want to come on and do interviews. So looking forward to that. But
looking forward to that.
Yeah, I got my my liver dried out, and it's back in functioning mode, and my body clock is back in Canadian time. So we're all good. And
Darren, I had a quick question I wanted to ask you. As somebody who is over in Accrington, goes to the WAM frequently, has been for years and years and years now. A big topic of conversation recently has been, the crowd size and things like that. From your observation, what would you say has been the difference between crowd sizes this year in League Two versus the past several years in League One?
Yeah, well, obviously it's the quantity. By the way, I'm just before we move on to that, Tony, did you actually see a win while you were over in Accrington?
I'll have to get back to you on that, Darren.
No, I don't remember him. I don't remember us winning while you came to a game. But nevertheless, we'll do some research on that in the background. Right. So yeah, Phil. I mean, I think that the home crowd is quite stable now. I think it's encouraging, even when we were losing at the back end of the season last year. I think most people stuck with us. Give or take an odd 100 dropping off here and there. We seem to get best part of 2,000 for any home game now, which is great. Obviously, it's still away support. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out the size of the clubs in League One against League Two, and obviously the financial differences that makes from the lounges that they've built, etc., that are to host these clubs coming. That's the biggest difference, and I think everybody knows that, and Andy Holt knows it more than anybody, because it will be affecting the finances of the club all round.
Yeah, I mean, what was it that Andy said that right now he's putting close to £100,000 of his own money into the club every month to keep it operating? Is that what I had read?
He said comments along those lines. I don't know if that's special for this time of year, or they're waiting for something, or it's because they paid on extra things for the ground. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of why he's doing that, why he has to do that now compared to before. If it's because we've been relegated, because contracts that needed paying up of people who've left, I don't know. It's only Andy can tell us that.
Yeah, it seemed to be a bit of a surprise comment when it was made, and I didn't get the impression it was a regular thing, but it could be. It just that he mentioned the previous month he had to put £90,000 into the club. So I don't know if he did that for to state a point, or it's worse than we think.
Yeah, I mean, emotions were running high on around that time, weren't they? Maybe that particular month he'd had to make up that shortfall. I don't know if it's an ongoing thing. That wasn't really clear to me through the comments.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's not a good thing, because I think that what we had talked about over the past several years is that we felt that Stanley had at least built a sustainable model where, maybe they weren't making a lot of money, but they weren't losing a lot of money either, and at least being able to maintain kind of a level of at least breaking even. And certainly with him looking to sell the club, I don't think that the buyers are going to be lining up for something that's losing money. So I mean, it's definitely a situation that I think is concerning.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll come on to that. We may be working in reverse, so a little bit of what led up to all those comments, and I don't think we're stirring the pot. It's just a case of talking through what we've all heard on social media, and we've all heard as supporters from probably the moment Jimmy went on radio and made those comments about his contract and wanting to stay and wanting security for the staff, and obviously we know it all exploded then, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the key, is that it came as a shock to a lot of people, because that just doesn't seem to be in Jimmy Bell's character. He was very obviously concerned about his future, but if just to do it in the format that he did, I think was if you want to use the old adage, it's the straw that broke the camel's back, because it certainly got a response from Andy Holt where he put his position forward and then said, basically, I'm done. I don't know how close Andy would have been to admitting he was done or throwing in the towel if that interview hadn't have aired when it did. I think it just sort of sped up his decision to, he was quite clear. He just said, I'm done. He's lost the fire. He's lost the desire, enthusiasm. So,
do you feel like it was just a situation where maybe Jimmy Bell was asked a question, he answered it honestly without really thinking of the ramifications of what he was saying? Because I think that is kind of what I think maybe the question just, he hadn't really thought about how he would answer that question, and, he just kind of answered it more honestly than he should have.
Yeah, I think you've hit a good point there. I think it's no secret that we've had Jimmy on this show. We all think a lot of Jimmy, all the supporters do. That I should imagine he does regret saying that statement in that that forum on radio. And like you said, Phil, he probably just speaking out loud and didn't really give it a lot of enough thought, and probably regrets it. And then we saw what happened next with an explosion next in the following weekend, wasn't it, with Andy? First on social media. I mean, I'll put it out there. I've argued with Andy on social media about certain things, but I'm certainly not going to stick the knife in on this one, because I can see exactly where he was coming from, how he went about it. And posting and tweeting
that should be kept behind closed doors.
Yeah, and it probably built up, and I think nearly everybody's had a few drinks and put things on social media that the next day they probably thought, well, I'm sober, I wish I hadn't gone that far. That's just life and social media, isn't it? And he's no different. He's the Amstovich chairman of Accrington Stanley, but he probably just got carried away himself. So fortunately, I think it has settled down. I mean, I haven't heard anything from either camp, and everybody seems to be getting on with things. So maybe it's just one of those situations that got out of control. I agree with what Tony said. It felt, listening to Andy, that he always had it in his mind that he wants only to go on another year or two. But because of all that, being upset by that, he probably thought, well, maybe bring it forward now.
I think the timing, obviously, we all knew what you said, Darren, and Andy Holt said it on this show that he was going to be done in 10. He's at the 8-year mark now, I can see both sides have got valid points, and I can understand where Jimmy's coming from on his side, and for John's point of view. And I think John is probably handling it the right way, where he's saying he's just going to focus on the pitch and the results on the field, which is the right thing to do. But again, I can see where Andy Holt, I can see his side when he said that at the beginning of the season that you guys get us safe and we'll sort out the contracts. And to be honest with you, if I'm in his shoes, I would have done exactly the same thing. And I'm quite confident that if that interview hadn't aired, that he would have gone about his business and come January, renewed their contracts. And whether there was any money for players, that's another story. But at least the contract would have been renewed, and he could have quietly gone about putting up the club for sale.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a situation that didn't need to happen. But let's go ahead and change topics, because you made a good point about what John Coleman said about focusing on the results on the pitch. And let's talk about that for a bit, because right now Accrington Stanley is 7th in the League 2 table, 26 points, which is about halfway to what everybody figures it will need for safety. So I mean, while we've had some good games and some not so good games, overall where we're at in the table is not a bad spot.
I think most supporters would have settled for it to be where we are now. It's consolidating. I think there was a lot of concerns with the amount of players who left, quality players, and you worried how the people are going to slot in. So I think all in all, it's been a steady start. We've started playing a lot better the last few games, I feel. Some of the early performances weren't good. They didn't always match the result, i.e. we got beaten the last game at home, but players got clapped off the pitch because, they played well. And it was a little bit in reverse, I thought, for the first few games. So it's weird how it works out, isn't it, football?
Well, when you say that we're 7th in the table, and after that loss, I think there was a bit of expectation that they could have got a result there. And like you said, they did. The effort was there, and at the end of the day, when you can see that they're leaving everything on the pitch, I think that's what fans hope for. And I think there's a lot more people at ease now, the position they're in. Because if you look at the league table, after what 15, 16 matches, it's pretty well sorting out what people thought it was going to be. Probably with the exception of other fans wouldn't think we would be in the playoff position, but all the top 4 or 5 teams are pretty well what people expected.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing, I mean, obviously losing to Colchester wasn't something that we wanted to do, but for the most part, we've beaten the teams that we should be beating.
Oh, and by the way, Darren, I did see a win at the WAM. It was a 4-1 win against Sutton.
Oh, right, yeah. I remember it well now, yeah.
Yeah.
I know, and as we've had to rebuild the team, I mean, I know there's been some criticism levelled at John and Jimmy from last season, and we know about the injuries, but when you look at, some of the signings didn't work unusually, and I suppose we're in a situation where if the signings just don't work one season, we're in a bad state of affairs, aren't we? So, but when you look at the players they've lost in this summer, I just made a note of a few. Imagine if you would have kept hold of these 5 into this season with what we've got: Mitch Clark, Harvey Rogers, Lucas Jensen, and Ethan Hamilton.
Yeah.
What I would wonder, I mean, I'm not necessarily stating any of those guys that you just mentioned. Do you think that there was some addition by subtraction during the offseason? I feel like the way that last season ended, there was certainly a divide in the changing room. Do you feel like maybe some of the people that have left were a net win in a sense that it allowed the changing room to become a better atmosphere?
Yeah, I wouldn't say atmosphere. And the 5th one that I missed off was Michael Nottingham. But I think it was just something a lot about wages and finances. You can imagine, and some players who just didn't want to play in League 2. You can imagine, Ethan Hamilton who wants to play up as high as he can, won't he? Lucas Jensen, I know he was only on loan, but players like that. I think there are a whole host of reasons why players have left in the summer. Some just financial, some for their own ambitions, and it's just this way it turns around every year, isn't it? My point was that they know how to build a team, and even though we had a bad season, some of the good players had to go, and ironically, if we'd have kept hold of some of those, and I know finances didn't, dictate that we could, we'd be even stronger than we are now.
Yeah, I think we covered that too towards the end of the season in our wrap-up, that some of the players would have to go. And I think there's no surprises in the group that left. I think if we'd have stayed up in League One, most of those guys would have been re-signed or stayed, including Jensen, because I know he was out of contract at Burnley, but he certainly expressed desire to stay at the WAM. But like you said, Darren, you've got to give them players, the respect that they want to play at a higher level. I think if you're in the profession, you want to do and be with the best in your profession, and footballers are no different. So I think combination of playing at a high level and wages is the reason why they had to cut back. But I think you're getting some playing time for some of the other individuals that were on the fringe, such as Jack Nolan, that seems to be sort of in and out with depending on Tommy Lee. But I think you can see from what Jack has contributed that he's going to be a valuable member of this club this season.
I think that plays into the addition by subtraction as well. It's given some guys who maybe wouldn't have had a chance to show what they're made of, and I think talent can only take you so far. Desire and the will to want to win and the will to want to play for Accrington Stanley is a big part of that too. And I think having guys out there that want to be out there and want to represent the badge is probably the number one thing.
Yeah, and you can see the difference that Joe Pritchard's made coming back. Ended up being, he's the captain now, isn't he? When Seamus hasn't been playing, and he's been excellent, really consistent.
Yeah, I think that I think it might have been against the Sutton match that he played half, and he could have been the man of the match for just the half of football he played. You can see that he's getting better. His timing is improving. His match fitness, what he contributes to the team. Some of the things that he does is definitely worthy of being at a higher level. But his injuries. He's got to get past that point of sort of other teams looking at him as a liability and for signing him. But if he stays healthy, I think he's going to be could be the major difference as to whether we make the playoffs or not.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that was something that I had said in our season preview, was that if we could get him back and healthy, it could be a game changer, because he's one of the guys on our roster that we can legitimately say, when healthy, is definitely better than a League 2 talent, definitely a League 1 talent, maybe even a championship level talent with a bit of health and be able to stay on the pitch for a whole season. I mean, this guy, he's probably the most talented player with the ball that we've had since Jordan Clark.
Yeah, he's excellent, and ironically, he would have been on that list I've just read out, wouldn't he? If he was fit, he'd have probably left. The fact he was in
blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
But I was just going to add, I think one of the things that I find different this year, whether you guys agree or not, is the quality of the loan players that have been brought in seem to be a little bit at a higher level than last season. I'm not sure if it's because we're in a lower league that these players are shining more, or it's just John and Jimmy have done a better job of scouting, because Josh Andrews leading the line up front is certainly an improvement, and probably one of the better strikers we've had up there for a couple of years or more. And Brad Hills, we forget the age that kid's at, and to do what he's doing on that back line, it's tremendous. I think those and it looks like that McCracken that is on those recurring 7-day emergency loans. He's certainly settling into his role. I think he likes to play out from the ground. I noticed that the first time he played, and I think he was trying to show what he could do, and he certainly can distribute the ball. I think he's a little bit ahead of the game in as far for Toby in that area. We can't deny his stop-shotting ability, and he seems to be able to control his box. So I think that's a quality loan signing coming in as well.
Yeah, you make a good point there, Tony. I mean, those two have been excellent this season, and there's no getting away from the fact that they're both really good. But is it helpful to them, but they're making the way in League Two? I mean, I'm especially thinking of defenders. I mean, the amount of times last season we got punished for any kind of mistake, where in this league, they do miss quite a lot more chances than what they do in League One. Everybody can see that, can't they?
Agreed. I mean, we're not getting punished. That's for sure. I mean, last season we'd be down 1-2-0, and it was all uphill after that. And now we're.
There's a lot of games where the wheels came off last year, where we'd be holding strong, and then we'd give up that one goal, and then suddenly we'd be 2-3 down.
Yeah, but I
think it's a strange one for supporters. It's a strange one for supporters as well, isn't it? You know what about being in different divisions? Because if you think about it being 7th from the bottom of League One, and your average matches, you're getting beat most games, or struggling to get points, and then it's 7th from top of League Two, where you're winning quite a lot of home games and you're going home happy. It's that's a fine line, isn't it? When you're looking at attracting people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel if we get down a goal that I don't have the same feeling as last season when you're down a goal. You think, well, they could, if they give up another one, it's all over, and chances, where they did that. But now you think, well, it's more of a wake up call, and I think sometimes the one thing I sort of notice is that the sense of urgency doesn't seem to come in as much as it should do, and I think they're starting to learn that more and more, that you can't just because you dropped down from League One, you just can't take it for granted that you're a better team. You've got to put it all on the pitch for 90 plus minutes and get that and just keep going. And I mean, they did everything. The last match when they lost, they did everything but put the ball in the net, and it just was one of those matches that it just wasn't going to go in. But it wasn't, as you mentioned, Darren, it wasn't for lack of trying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another big thing is that we're seeing effort for a full 90 minutes. We're not seeing where guys are getting frustrated and, maybe getting off of their game where we saw that a lot last year. Well, let's change topics here a little bit now. Now, Tony, you had mentioned that when you were over in England that you had talked with Luke Pearson, and I know you talked with Peter Latham and several other people over with the organization, and had lined up some potential interviews. You had mentioned a couple a little bit earlier, but let's talk about who may be coming on the show here in the near future.
Well, yeah, a couple of players that I spent a few minutes chatting with, and one of them that was very eager to come on, and I think would be a good guest is Jack Nolan. I think he said yeah, no problem, just to let him know. So definitely looking forward to getting him on. And also I personally spoke to Seamus Keneally and Sean McConville, congratulated them on their their testimonial season, and both have agreed to come on the show to talk about their career at Stanley and promote their events for the testimonial. So that's looking pretty good. And there's a gentleman that Darren would know, and you've probably seen his name, Phil, on on some of our comments and in the media, in social media, a fellow by the name of Lyndon Bost, who's a gentleman that volunteers and does a lot for the club. He spends some hours in the Market Old shop manning the store. And I had a chance to spend a few minutes with him. He writes some lovely poems, and I think there's something that would be interesting. He's an interesting gentleman to get on the show. And of interest is that he's the last surviving member of the meeting that took place in 1968. That was part of the start of the revival of Accrington Stanley coming back into existence. So I think that would be great to have somebody to come on to document what was discussed at that meeting, and also for him to share a couple of his poems. Yeah, I think it's something we haven't touched on, and it would be important for the show. And he's a great guy to talk to, so I'm looking forward to having him on the show as well.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great slate of guests, and I'm really excited to anytime we do something to tell about the history of the club. That's something that has always been a hallmark of our show, and especially with Darren's Legend series.
Talking about history, been some strange events for me this week. Somebody posted on the memories page asking about an ex-player called Bill Robinson from the 1950s. So we started looking into this story of this guy, and as it turns out, he was an Accrington Stanley player in 1953, and he was was murdered in a double murder in Manchester, and there's a company making a documentary about this story of what happened. I've been asked to do an interview and go potentially up to Peel Park where they played and talk about these guys. I'm doing a bit of research at the moment. I won't give too much away, but the story is unbelievable.
Wow, that sounds quite interesting.
Yeah.
I think there was
things you fall into.
A domestic dispute might be involved in that. I think what I read.
There was, but there's a lot more to it as well, though. But that hasn't been posted, so I don't want to give too much away. Yeah,
I did a double take on the name because that name of the player is the same name as my grandfather. So I did double take to make sure that it wasn't the same.
Yeah,
same,
especially being in a domestic dispute as well. I'm
moving on to the Wrexham match.
Yeah, we got
let's talk Wrexham.
One that everybody has had circled on the calendar. I hear they have a rather famous owner.
Well, yes, two of them. I think probably the bigger name of the two would be Ryan Reynolds, a fellow Canadian right now I'm sort of in communication with him on his Twitter account, and I think he's just asking some questions to get some research on where we're from. So I'm asking him if he wants to come on the show to talk about his story in his life with Wrexham and what he's done for football in the lower leagues, and hopefully he'll come on the show and we can have him as a guest and get his opinion on playing at Stanley.
Wrexham is on a heck of a run of form too. They're unbeaten in their last 5. They're 30 points, third in the table right now. They've only lost 2 times all year, so that's definitely going to be a difficult match that we have coming up. Yeah,
and that's quite topical as well, isn't it? Because they're bringing quite a few supporters, aren't they? I know there's been some criticism about giving the stand up. Yeah.
What's going on with that? Are they talking about giving the Eric Wally stand to the Wrexham supporters?
Yeah, I think so. That's what's happening. I think it's been sold out, to be honest. So I know there's been people disgruntled by that, but I don't see a problem with it needing the money. If we had more people from Accrington to come, great. But if we haven't, there's no point having empty seats, is there?
Well, that's exactly. If somebody's willing to pay for a seat and they happen to be from following Wrexham, then if a club is where the owners had to put £90,000 in the last month, and you've got another say 500-600 supporters are going to go and buy some extra seats, then it's from a business decision. It's a no-brainer. You got to do it, and I got no problem with it. Like you say, Darren, you can't have an empty seat when people are willing to buy them.
The people complaining about it are probably the same people complaining that we're not signing enough players.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't like it, and it does detract from the home atmosphere. And I wish, I wish so much that we could fill 3 sides of the ground, because we've never done it. No matter the game, we don't seem to be able to do that. So if we could, great. But if we can't, we've got to put up with it, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, it would be, all full of Accrington fans, except for, the one little away section. But it's not a perfect world, and there's some big clubs around Accrington, and Accrington isn't the biggest town in the world, so you gotta get the asses in the seats, like they say over here.
Yeah. Definitely.
Just as we're talking about that, I've actually in the last few minutes I got a text from a tweet, I should say, from Ryan Reynolds, and he basically asked the question: "So, are you a fan of me?" So I think I'm going to say yes.
I would say just, we'll say that we're a fan of his movies, and we think he was completely unfair, the treatment he got over the Green Lantern.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Well, but I said I'm going to say I did. I think you're deadpan. It's not deadpan. It's Deadpool, isn't it? I better change that.
Yeah. Just ask him if he's.
He knows we want to talk about football first.
Yeah, ask him if he's a fan of you, Tony.
Yeah, he probably wants to know if I got a cunning plan, but
yeah.
But anyway, we'll maybe. If we pull it off, that's great. But if we don't, then at least we can't. We certainly
it's
try.
His loss.
Yeah, his loss. Yeah. I mean, if he could come on and help promote his career a bit, where we'll help him out on that.
Yeah.
I just want to ask. I know we've talked about the position of the team, and I think we all agree. Do we that? They're good. They're safe this year, and it's just a question of how high they can finish. We're all on the same page there, are we?
I believe so. I mean, unless we get hit with a very unfortunate rash of injuries, I can't see us not at least getting another 25 points and remaining safe.
Yeah. I don't, what football's like. Anything can happen, but we can go on a bad run. But I don't think we will. I think we've got enough players playing well, and one player we didn't mention, who I'm enjoying watching this last couple of years, Sean Whalley. I mean, what is he? 35, 36. I put it on Twitter the other day. He could play another 3 or 4 years. Yeah, how fit he is.
Yeah,
he's unbelievable. He's been a great signing.
And the goal, he scored some wonderful goals this season. And I mean, there was that one, I thought it was probably one of the best goals of the season until Tommy Lee got that one goal that was sort of, with his back to the goal, and he put it in the top corner. Actually, I can't remember who it was against now. Might have been Wimbledon. But the goal that Sean Whalley scored against Doncaster, he's got that. I mean, to have that in his locker at 36, like you say, Darren, you've got to just give it hats off to him and the example he sets on and off the pitch for the players, and that's something we're going to talk to. We'll ask Jack Noel when he comes on, the influence he has on the team and that sort of thing. I just wanted to ask too. There was an article that Andy Holt, or interview he gave for the Football League paper, there was a bit, it was a bit depressing in the read of it, in the sense that I guess they're making the point that the EFL need more owners like Andy Holt, and they shouldn't be losing people like him, which I think we have to agree upon, but. Where do we see this thing panning out? What do we see happening for the future of Accrington Stanley? Because I don't see that could be a lot of choices of local businessmen with the resources to buy into the club and sustain it.
It just, when you look at it from outside, I mean, how many people want to buy Accrington Stanley Football Club? It can't be a lengthy list, can it?
Well, if you look at the number of people that would have the financial withdrawal to do it in the area, and that's one of the things that Andy wants, is to make sure that it's somebody that understands the community and wants to carry on what they've started. And if you look at the local people in that who has that kind of money, it reduces it. And then out of that list, how many would be interested in running a football? So it's got to be a very, very, and I think some of these people think that when they talk about succession planning and having the owners line up, if it was that easy, there'd be lots of other clubs that we can mention that would like Rochdale and places like that have just gone downhill, that don't have the investment or the resources to compete.
Yeah. And when you get foreign owners who are looking at buying a club, I mean, Wrexham's a prime example. They haven't just stumbled upon Wrexham. They've looked at teams in the lower leagues who've got potential to go right through the leagues, and with fan base and a big town stroke city, and I mean, we all love Accrington, but I mean Accrington Stanley. But I mean, how many foreign investors want to get involved, and where can you take it?
Well, and that's it, because like you said, Wrexham, I mean, you look at the location and the stadium and the draw that they have. You can't say that about Stanley, because you've got Blackburn, Burnley, Bolton, Everton, Liverpool, Man United City, all those teams around that draw people from the Ironburn area. So it's a different market, and I don't know if you can just rely on some Hollywood owner walking in like they did at Wrexham and saving the club. But now, if we are lucky enough to get Ryan Reynolds on the show, we can certainly ask him if he's got any business associates that have a few million that they don't mind losing.
Phil might know somebody. Do you know anyone, Phil? Like a retired NASCAR driver or something?
There you go.
I'm just going to keep buying my Powerball tickets and hope to hit the big jackpot, and then Stanley will be taken care of forever.
Yeah, that'll be good. Unveiling Phil as the new owner. That'll be a good day out, won't it?
Yeah, I'd bring you two on board. Tony could be in charge of the beer distribution, and
oh no, I don't think you want that, Phil. You definitely don't want that. It's sort of like there's no end to this story at the moment. I mean, it all exploded, and the dust is starting to settle. But Andy Holt's not going to walk away, but doesn't want to continue. I just don't know where we see this ending, because, as I say, unless somebody jumps in, with money to do and a new vision, I just don't know how this is going to pan out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is he wants to move on. He's ready to sell the club, but who is going to buy the club? I mean, the way that I had seen things happening was that I had assumed that at some point that Accrington would kind of transfer over to being like a town-owned club, where maybe it would be something like the Green Bay Packers do, where people in the city own shares of the club. I mean, to me, that would sound like the most logical type of solution, is to actually have many owners and like a public stock sale.
Well, I don't know. I won't speak for Darren, but I don't know if there's that kind of money around to do that.
No, I mean, the only club I can think of that works well that way, and it's run through a trust fund, is Exeter City, and I think it's a little bit unique and quirky for it to work, and they do have a decent supply, support and supply of people down that area who've probably got quite a bit of money. So I don't know if it's exactly like for like, but who knows? I'm sure it's another episode in a few months, isn't it?
Well, and just the last question I have for both you guys is who's going to be the one that leads first, John or Jimmy or Andy? Who's going to be gone first?
That question. Well, I mean, if Accrington stays up this year, which they should, I don't see any reason for John and Jimmy to go anywhere. I also don't see anybody buying the club in the next 12 months. I honestly, I think it would have to be Andy, and then the new owner would bring in whoever his staff would be, because I don't see Andy wanting to go and have to find a competent management staff to replace them. He wants out.
I just wanting to sit on the fence. I'm just 50-50. I just can't see. I mean, at the end of the day, they're out of contract, aren't they? So if they're looking at it purely just looking out for themselves, which why not? If they get an offer to go somewhere else, they might even just leave before the end of the season, and that's it.
Yeah, that is a very valid point. I mean,
might not get to the end of the season.
There's got to be other clubs looking and saying, hey, these guys have won a lot of football matches.
And on the other hand, Andy, you don't know how close he is to selling the club. Does he really want to sell the club? Does he want a couple more years? So you don't know what he's thinking. It's a shame. I mean, I don't know enough about finances of football, but it's a shame in a way when we went down. They could have had a performance-related contract, i.e., they got in the top 7 or whatever it was, and then another year kicks in. Something along that line, so it rewards them for the achievements. But who knows? It's probably a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that Andy said that, and I have to agree that generally most owners would have fired the coaching staff once they were relegated, and they earned the right to stay on because of the accomplishment they did at the club. I think that's a smart move on Andy's part, but as you say, I don't know.
Well, I think it is a smart move, but the dynamics are so different at Accrington, where all these other teams who they get relegated, sack the manager. The management team haven't got 20 years experience, and they're not. I mean, some supporters that they only know John and Jimmy as a manager. Some only know Andy Holt as a chairman.
Yeah.
It's completely different than most clubs. Yeah, it's completely different. And so, could Andy Holt, even if he wanted to sign, did he feel comfortable doing it? Did he think that the crowd would turn against him if he did, even if he wanted to? There's so many different dynamics than a regular football club with this. It's like you said, there's so many twists and turns.
It's a one-off situation.
It is. You're right, Phil.
Exactly like Accrington anywhere.
No.
Well, I just see. I think as the dust settles and the winning changes a lot of makes a lot of things more positive. And I think if we continue to progress and sort of stay in that playoff hunt, that we may see a sort of a sit down again around the table and a little more softening of the relationship, maybe get back on track. Because if Andy realizes you can't sell it, I think as the dust settles, I think the relationship hopefully can heal itself. And right now, the most logical option is for things to be the same as they are next year, with Andy still around looking to sell, but still continue on as the owner, and John and Jimmy contract renewed for a year plus or whatever. So if we have this next going to next season with the three main characters still involved, I don't think I'd be surprised.
Not at all. I completely agree with everything you just said there, Tony.
Yeah. I won't be surprised either. And I think maybe it may have happened already. They may have sat down between them all, a pint of Accy ale, and sorted it all out, because it has gone quiet. So they probably, if they have, I found a way forward, you probably won't hear much anyway.
Yeah, I mean, these guys have enough history together. It's not like this is their first time around the block.
Yeah, and as we talked, one thing I just finished on is that John mentioned the other day about, I think we all like to see a good cup run and the romance of the FA Cup. But to be honest with you, the club seems to do better in the league when they don't have a good cup run. So if they go out, I think that's the positive is that they can then focus on the league and try and finish as high as they can, and hopefully, fingers crossed, get a playoff spot. But anyway,
that's my feeling on cups. If you win them, great. You can use the money, and it's a lot of fun for the fans. If you lose, then you get to concentrate on the league. So, cup games are that to me at least.
Yeah, but we're looking at the draw for the second round, if they do manage to get past Doncaster, it's away at Salford or Peterborough, is it? Yeah, I mean, if they get to the third round after all that, it will be a minor miracle anyway, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, let's focus on league and get as high as we can. And Phil, whenever you're ready, I can start setting up some the time for interviews, or we can get some players on, and let's get back into the big swing of things.
Yeah, I think that starting next week, actually starting this week, since we're recording today, that we should be back on track to record every week, and looking forward to those interviews, and looking forward to chatting with both of you more over the upcoming months, and cheering a hopeful League Two playoff run on.
Oh, it's nice to have you back, Phil. Nice to have you back.
Well, nice to be back. Nice to have you guys back in the saddle, and nice to be chatting Accrington Stanley football again. Final words, Darren?
No, again, it's been great to have a chat. We've covered a lot of ground there on and off the pitch. Plenty more to discuss. The season unfolds. Every game, you've got your eyes on what's going to happen now, and looking forward to all of it, really.
Yep.
It's an exciting time to be an Accrington fan, as it always is. All right, guys, on three. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. On Stanley on!
On Stanley on. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Have a great one.